Greetings, everyone, and welcome again to another edition on the Not Just Football podcast. Yeah, doing a really short clip, which is a tribute to Lord Herman Ouseley, and I don't think it would be right for me to go through the whole of October without not mentioning him once. And he's a very, very, very influential person, and arguably you could say he's the most influential person of colour in British football in terms of what he'd done and what he'd actually worked towards. What he'd achieved is nothing short of remarkable, and what he'd actually helped to create has been groundbreaking and has changed the face of football in the UK and in Europe forever. Okay. So, Herman George Ouseley was born in British Ghana in 1945 and was part of the Windrush generation, came to this country in 1957. And he went to William Pitt School in Catford. Graduated with a diploma in municipal administration, and continued to work diligently in that capacity. He'd managed to get himself elected to quite a few boards and quite a few working parties in local councils, and worked a lot in dealing with things in race relations and discrimination, especially discrimination in the workplace. Okay. He'd managed to be appointed as a principal advisor after many years of work, sterling work, and get recognised by the GLC. Now, the GLC, the Greater London Council, in the 70s and 80s, was the organisation that helped to manage a lot of administration work related to a lot of the councils in London, within the London boroughs. And it predated the mayor's office. And the very first mayor, Ken Livingstone, was the head of the GLC in the 1980s. So as the head of the GLC, Lord Ouseley managed to get elected to work for the GLC, and he served as a principal head for the Greater London Council's Ethnic Minority Unit, which looked at everything to do with race, discrimination, working conditions for people of colour and different ethnic minorities. And he also became the chief executive for Lambeth Council. His work in the GLC culminated in him becoming the head of education for the Inner Education Authority in the GLC. And he was the first black person to hold that particular office. And he'd done some fantastic work looking at education, equality, race discrimination, and various other things. Not only issues on race, but just sterling work looking at education and young people in general. And he was responsible for over 1,000 schools and colleges in the London metropolitan area as lead for the Education Authority. And whilst doing that, he was offered the opportunity to become chair and chief executive of the Commission for Racial Equality, which looked at things not only in education but in employment as well, industrial work, also tribunals, and workers of colour when having disputes with their employers, legal disputes, where they're being equally addressed, and also looked at the payout and compensation for black workers who would take employees to tribunals, especially on issues of race discrimination. So whilst working in the capacity doing that, one of the things that he was recognized and acknowledged for was his diligence and his capacity to manage large workloads, and also to challenge the establishment on helping to get legislation changed. And he managed to get himself recognized for his work, and he was admitted he was given a position in the House of Lords. As a Lord, he became Lord Ouseley, and later on Baron Ouseley as well, which for somebody coming from Ghana in the Windrush era and coming to the UK was pretty amazing for somebody of that, from that background, to actually get to that position. It's pretty amazing for him to be able to achieve that. Now in 1993, whilst he was in the House of Lords, and again working as part of the Commission for Racial Equality, he set up a working party, and that working party was really focused on cheering issues around racism in football. And in the 1970s and the 1980s, racism in football was in a different place. Racist chanting on the terraces and the physical abuse of black players, people throwing objects and projectiles at them, bananas. And there's the really famous, the infamous, should I say, scenes of monkey chanting. Players like Vince Hilaire and people like Paul Canaville, and also earlier than that, in 1978, the BBC's first recording of Laurie Cunningham and Sarah Regis facing monkey chanting, and Jules Sinstad was the BBC commentator commentating on West Brom's game against Manchester United. So in 1993, Lord Ouseley was chairing that working party, and that working party set up itself to tackle and deal with issues of race and discrimination in football. And one of the things that he actually managed to put together was the framework that underpinned Kick It Out. And then Kick It Out managed to lead on race-related legislation throughout the UK. Not only that, but also throughout Europe as well. So European football wouldn't be the same without Lord Ouseley's work, without his diligence and his knowledge and skill and expertise in legislative matters and issues. And what he had done and what he created cannot be understated. And there isn't a player of colour in the UK who should not acknowledge what he had actually done and created. So his work in Kick It Out is groundbreaking. What he'd actually helped to put together as first chair of Kick It Out, was also far-reaching as well. It should also be said that he done this work voluntarily. So he never got paid for any of the work he done with Kick It Out, and he never got paid for helping to set the organisation up. He done it out of a love and a need to deal with and address issues around racism in football. And he done it fully well, knowing that he wasn't doing it for financial gain. He done it out of goodwill, and he done it because he wanted to. He done it because he wanted to acknowledge things and issues around race that needed to be addressed. So that's really important for everyone to know and to understand. Yeah. And he already had the challenge of coming to this country as part of the Windrush from Ghana, and as a Caribbean boy, becoming educated and trying to establish himself within British society. And for him to not only do that successfully, but also through his work in the GLC, through his work as part of the Commission for Race and Equality, through his work in education for all children of all backgrounds, and then for that to culminate in him setting up Kick It Out, his work should not go without being acknowledged, you know. He died this year, 2nd of October, 2024. And the fact that he passed away during a time when in the UK, kick racism out of football and Black History Month is being acknowledged and celebrated by the FA. Black History Month is being acknowledged and celebrated throughout the libraries and the educational system in this country, and what it means to address and look at. I wouldn't say it's Black history, I'd say it's a shared history. What he's done and what he's achieved is nothing short of a miracle, and it should really be acknowledged. And I'm quite disappointed that what he's done and the work he's done in his achievement has not been stated or acknowledged any more than it already has been. So, you know, I wanna really show my respects and pay regard to Lord Ouseley, what he's done, what he's achieved. And we shouldn't forget that on the 2nd of October, the same month that the FA's got their Kick It Out strategy and policies, and the same month that the schools and libraries in this country celebrate Black History Month to educate children, I don't think it should go unnoticed that one of the great ambassadors for British football and for the Black community has left us on the 2nd of October. Personal life, people should know that he's a lifelong Manchester United fan, for those that don't know. And he really acknowledged and appreciated and loved sports. And also believed that, you know, if we're going to enjoy sport as people of colour and we're going to be a part of British society, that we need to be treated with a certain amount of respect. And that not only the fact that racial discrimination shouldn't be tolerated, but further than that, legislation should be put in place to outlaw and criminalise certain practices. You know, and that's what the key factors, the key things that he brought to the forefront. You know, so please share a thought for Lord Herman Ouseley, now becoming Baron Ouseley, who's passed away on the 2nd of October. Share a thought for him. Please go and do some research and look him up and find out more about him. And we'll catch you at the Man City Spurs fixture.